uh, session. So just note that, please. You may see a little pop-up window that asks for your permission. We're hoping to share this workshop with many other farmers who could benefit from it. So just a note on that, and we'll say that again as more people join. But we'd love to, so there's a few of you who are on the call right now in this workshop, and we're gonna launch a little poll question here. I'm gonna see if it's working for you. So just launched it. So for you attendees you'll see a poll question get launched here. We're just rating your knowledge, kind of doing a baseline. We'll do this again at the end. So if you're at your computer and you're able, or on your phone, you're able to complete this poll, it would be great to have you participate in that. All right, awesome. So we have average and above average right now for the few of you who are on, so that's awesome. So hopefully we'll be able to teach you something new today. And we'll rate that again at the end and see what's going on. All right, I'm gonna leave that up for, I think folks who join will see it pop up as well. So thank you everyone for joining. We have you here until 7 o'clock this evening. So we have a really exciting lineup for you. We're hoping to teach you lots of awesome information on online sales, tools that are available to help you make decisions on maybe what e-commerce platforms will work best for you, other web-based tools available to you to increase your efficiencies and sales of your operation. So we've got lots of stuff to cover today. Really excited for our 3 farms that are here to talk about their experiences. And yeah, just excited for everything that's going to be going on this evening. And Alicia, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we'll have Ivy go over the Zoom basics next.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to take a couple minutes here just to go over Zoom basics. Some of you, this might be very familiar, but for those of you who might be new, just want to give you a few tips. Just throughout the meeting, if you could keep yourself on mute, even a little bit of background noise throughout can be a bit distracting, but of course, feel free to unmute when we have Q&A time. You can control whether your video is on or off. It's really nice to see folks' faces, but I completely understand if you're eating dinner or have other reasons why you'd like to have your video off, but that can be your choice. I recommend playing with that view button in the top right, especially as there's screen sharing or not screen sharing throughout, to be sure that you find a view that works well for you. It's something that I tend to work with throughout. All right, next slide, please. Feel free to use the chat function that's down there on the bottom. You can chat with everyone. That tends to be the default, or you can send a private message to just one person. So if you're having specific question that you want to send only to one person, for example, a tech question, or during Q&A, if you want your question to be anonymous, you can send that to a particular person. And it's nice if you could rename yourself there, just so that we know what your name is, and name and business is lovely, but at least your name on there would be great. So I think that's all I have there for the Zoom basics. If you have any questions about Zoom, feel free to send that over to me. But as most of you know, this workshop is put on through the SBDC Small Business Development Center workshop series. And this particular workshop is in partnership with the good folks at the CAF Tech Hub. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Alicia, for putting this together. Really been looking forward to this. I'm excited about it. Since you all registered for this, you've all navigated the SBDC website just a little bit. So you've probably seen some of these upcoming workshops, but I do recommend that you take a close look and see if there's something there that would be of interest to you. And just very briefly, SBDC, I believe you all are pretty familiar, but we have pretty extensive one-on-one advising opportunities for any small business. I am a consultant with them for small farm businesses, and there are consultants really of all kinds. If you're looking for assistance with your bookkeeping, with marketing, really all across the board, reach out to us and we can get you connected with some no-cost business advising. And there's trainings and workshops like these that are specific to farmers, but there are also ones that can apply to any sort of business or multiple types of businesses. And also we have funding assistance. So if you're looking for loans or grants or other financial resources, the folks at the North Coast SBDC would love to talk with you and see what we can connect you with.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivy. And so moving forward. So welcome again, folks who are on the call so far. We're recording this. So if you have any colleagues that are going to be interested in this information or find the information helpful, please feel free to forward that link with them once we send that out after today's workshop. So briefly, I'm going to be plowing through a lot of information really fairly quickly because we got a bit of a late start, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for our panelists to share their experiences and have lots of time for Q&A to get at any particular questions you as an attendee want to ask. So here's an outline of our learning objectives for today. We're going to be talking about how e-commerce supports with your marketing and sales in general, just make sure we're all starting at a strong place and all on the same page. We're going to learn about some of the e-commerce platforms that are available out there, especially with the ones targeting the agricultural businesses. And then we're going to hear from 3 panelists. I'm so excited. We got 3 people, all unique experiences, all using different platforms and tools. We're going to hear and learn a lot from them towards the end of the workshop. And then Community Alliance with Family Farmers. You'll learn a bit more about us here in a minute. But we have a new tech hub. We're here supporting farmers across California for free through a USDA grant that we got. So you'll be learning more about that as well if you want some follow-up support after you learn more about the different platforms, different tools that are available to you. And so, yeah, note on the Q&A too, as we're going through this, if questions pop up for you, please feel free to put them directly into our chat box that you see available to you. We're going to have discussion time at the end of the workshop, but while those are fresh on your mind, just plop them right in there and we'll pull them up for that Q&A time. So feel free to do that. And we're going to have people joining us throughout the presentation. So we'll keep admitting people. All right, so a bit about CAF. We are a nonprofit, Community Alliance of Family Farmers. You may have heard about us, you may not, but we work across California supporting farmers and sustainable agriculture. And our goal is to build a sustainable food and farming system through policy advocacy, on the ground programs that create more resilient family farms, communities, and ecosystems. We have a mailing list if you're not on it yet, where you'll get updates on any policy alerts that impact small agriculture across California, free programs and resources that are available to small farms. So I just put that in the chat box. If you're not subscribed yet, it's a great way to stay in touch with us and get more support in the future. Right, on to the next slide. What our nonprofit does, we provide a lot of direct support services to farmers, including farm to market, which can be selling your produce to a school buyer. They do a lot of work around farm to school. We have policy. We do a lot of advocacy and lobbying at our state capitol to get more funding towards small farms and sustainable food systems. We have an ecological farming program, and we also have farming services, which is where I fit in. That's a photo of me, and then Alicia, who you'll be hearing from in a minute. We both are working for the Small Farm Tech Hub. We're really excited to be a part of this brand new program at CAF. Our program is looking to identify web-based solutions that will make purchasing local food more convenient, accessible, and competitive across California. And we're going to do this by providing direct support, one-on-one meetings with farmers across California on your e-commerce options, on other needs that you have. So we're going to be providing these services for free, and I'm going to be sharing a bit more information about how you can get those free services. But just wanted to flag that we're really here to support you and to have your small business thrive in this ever-changing world. So on to the next slide, what I just mentioned. So we know you as a small farm operation, you're wearing so many hats, you're managing tight budgets, you have so much going on with your customers. And we know farm to market technology and online sales technology is such a big year, especially with the pandemic and everything that was going on. So this is one of the reasons why we're providing this free support and resources to farmers operating in California. So you'll be able to arrange for direct one-on-one consulting appointments with our Tech Hub team. So Alicia and myself, and we have 2 other contractors who are based across California. And we're gonna ask all the attendees a poll question here in about 20 minutes. Hopefully we get a few more people to join. And we'd love to follow up with you on any support that you would find helpful and be available for you with any business needs that you have as it relates to web-based technology. We really want to ensure the success of all of you. So that's why this is happening. The USDA sees it as a big need too, which is why they're funding us. We really are, just eager to get out there and support farmers such as yourself. So more on that soon. All right, so moving on to the next slide. So we have so much information we want to share with you. We are running a bit late, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But just want to mention that technology is tied into all pieces of your business. It offers you tools, to better reach your customers, manage your business, whether that's keeping books or projecting future sales. There are a lot of strategies that you develop as a business owner, whether it's on paper, in your head, on the computer, like you're thinking through these strategies. So you've determined what to sell, you've asked what products and market channels best fit your skills and business goals, and technology offers the tools and tactics to help support all those strategies, whether you're using them or not. And that's one of the reasons we're having this workshop, is to help maybe think through some of those technology resources that are available to you that maybe aren't being utilized, or that you could use more, use less sometimes is like something that needs to happen. So we're here to help you with all of that. All right, so now we're going to go over a bit about consumer trends and forecasts, and especially with what happened during COVID. So this graph, some of you may be able to guess what this represents. This is a summary of the volume of folks who are searching for CSA programs in California during the last year and a half or so. So you see that huge spike there. That's in March or April of 2020. We've heard lots of farms who said their CSA subscriptions doubled during that period. And a lot of these sales were made online. So we just want to highlight, what happened. We see that online sales are here to stay. And I'm going to share some more graphs and research that highlight that that is in fact happening. So we need to do market research. We need to think of our long-term goals for our business, how current trends may impact your business, what you can do about forecasting those trends and applying it to yourself. This is something I want to highlight because it can seem overwhelming sometimes, but we know that this quote from Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of the species that always survives, nor the most intelligent, it's the one that is the most adaptable. And I feel like all small farms out there are just so adaptable, so resilient. You're all kicking butt every day and working your hardest. And we have some quotes here from people in the small farm industry that really are saying, to sustain this movement moving forward and all the support, it's going to be how we adapt and how we change our business practices to meet customer expectations. And it's a different world now. So let's all learn from each other. Let's do what we can to make and keep these sales. All right, so on to the next slide, please. So this is a graph looking at current trends and expectations. We had a lot of new customers trying new market channels for the very first time, especially during this pandemic. And they've stuck around for at least a year. So this is a graph highlighting that. We saw about 10 years worth of market channels growth happen in 1 year. So this just like blew out across the water. And we see that it's here to stick around. On to the next slide, please. So this is a chart, and I apologize, I'm going to go through this really quick. If you want to look into this report more, it's linked there at the bottom, and we can share it with you as well. But this is a chart highlighting how respondents how the people surveyed have responded to their intention to use more or less of those market channels in the future. So there's a huge amount of these customers that are like, yeah, the new CSA or the new produce stand I tried out was great. I'm planning to go back. And that's the start here with direct from producer or food box programs. And on to the next slide, please. How did these consumers and customers find these new markets? And surprising, but not too surprising, is word of mouth still continues to be a key method for attracting new customers. So at the Tech Hub, we were just talking about referral marketing, like refer a friend to get a free produce box or half off your next box. Things like that are huge and have worked really well for small businesses. So just wanted to highlight this, even with the pandemic and people not seeing each other, they're still talking. On to the next slide. So for this webinar, we're really going to provide a bird eye view of the e-business landscape. And it can seem really overwhelming, but matching up your marketing and tech strategy with your level of operation is where you want to focus your energy. So did any of your marketing channels or customers shift with COVID? And does your website reflect those changes? Or do you even need to create a website? Maybe you didn't have one before. Now you really see that you want to have one. Are you offering any new products? So really putting the effort into planning out your strategies and long-term goals will make e-commerce decision-making and your online tool selection much, much easier. And we're gonna keep repeating that. That's just doing the planning and understanding your needs is key to selecting the right tool. So we're not going to be going through all the dozens of software platforms. You know, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of plugins. There's a lot of payment processors. There's all this fancy stuff. As the Tech Hub, we're providing those free services and free consulting to you to help make that part of the journey a bit easier. So again, we'll launch a poll so you can see that and get follow-up if you'd like. So for this webinar, we're really going to discuss a broad view of everything, let you know about some of the free resources that are available to dig deeper into, and then bring this knowledge home with real life examples from the field, which we're really excited to share that with our panelists. So on to the next slide, please. So this is, I think, how a lot of people feel as they start to dig more into technology and learn about these things. CRM, what is that? What's this SEO stuff? But don't worry, you're not alone. No one was born knowing these things, which is what I always say. We're here to help. Other people are here to help. So just ask lots of questions. No question is stupid. Just like throw everything out there and we can dig in and learn more about this crazy technology world together. So want to say that. So again, a reminder to put any questions that come up for you in the chat box. We'll have hopefully lots of time at the end for Q&A. So any questions that are posted in there, whether now or in 5 minutes and 20 minutes, we'll pull that in for the chat box or for the Q&A time. So this is one resource that we find super helpful. And we'll link this in the chat here, but it's a resource on consideration, what questions to ask when you're really thinking about which e-commerce platform may work for you. And this is guiding questions like, do you already have a website for your farm business? If so, there's maybe already an online store that's compatible with that website. You can just easily plug in. I'm not going to go into too much details on this because we are behind, but I linked it in the chat if you'd like to dig a bit deeper and see if that's helpful for you. On to the next slide. This is a very kind of broad overview that has all the different components that go into an e-commerce platform or online tool. We want to provide this so you can see and give you an idea of what goes into the decision-making process. This involves where folks maybe find your product for sale online, maybe that if it's through your own website or a third-party provider like Amazon or someone else. All the way to how folks pay and receive your product. I'm not going to go into all the details because we could have a separate webinar on each one of these components, but just wanted to give you an overview of all the different stuff that's going on here. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Alicia, who's going to go over some of these platforms that are available in more detail, key resources, and highlight some of the practical examples from the field that we've seen so far. And then we'll dig into our panel discussion from there. So please feel free to add any questions as they pop up again in the chat. And we're really excited to keep up the workshop. So Alicia, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to try to zip through my slides as well. I really think that the information that the farmers have with their direct experience is going to be super helpful, and the Q&A as well. Like Elizabeth said, there's dozens of options to choose from for managing your CSA and e-commerce, and it can be very overwhelming, but like she said, we're here to help, and the Tech Hub is going to be a great resource for that if you're looking for assistance. And then just as we go through these slides, I wanted to share that CAF isn't necessarily endorsing any particular product or company, but we want to help you navigate the options and help keep the small and diverse farms viable. And then, we just want you to think of us as your business consultants and advisors. So on to the next one. Like Elizabeth said, there's so many resources out there, especially after COVID, that have been developed. This one that I'm sharing is from the National Young Farmers Coalition. So this one compares 19 different software programs and their capabilities. So it answers some questions about like which platforms integrate with like QuickBooks or can, like Local Orbit or something, do offline payment options. And these platforms are constantly changing and updating to respond to clients' needs. So that's also something to consider if you're using these resources, that it's always changing, it's always evolving. So definitely always look a little further. And I think that Elizabeth is going to link that in the chat box, this resource. And then, yeah, we understand that budget is a huge consideration when choosing a platform. So this same resource also lays out the fees associated with each of these platforms. This is another amazing resource that we've been sharing with a lot of our technical support clients. This is from the CSA Innovation Network. It was built off the National Young Farmers Coalition as a complimentary guide, and it highlights the top 9 platforms as ranked by farmers. Something that's really useful to know as you dig into it includes a list of pros and cons for each platform as reported by farmers who have used them. There are also video links to farmers interviewed on their experiences using all the platforms you see listed here. And we will also share the link for that in the chat. These are great resources for determining which platform is best for the unique needs of your farm. I also recommend visiting the platform's websites. Many of the farm-specific platforms highlight the farms that they work with, so you can see how the platform integrates with their websites. So I'm going to dive into an example of 2 very different farms that both use Shopify in a different way. And they both started using it after COVID happened. And so though they are using the same platform, their goals and their needs are very different. And in this case, also want to say again, I'm not necessarily endorsing Shopify, but I instead want to emphasize the importance of the decision-making process and assessing your own needs as you explore new e-commerce platforms and other online sales options. So I'll start with Liberty Ducks. They're a duck farm based in Sonoma County, and they've been in operation for 30 years. Prior to COVID, they were doing all wholesale, direct sales to restaurant and grocery stores. So they had no direct to consumer. So when COVID happened, that kind of all changed. But they had been taking text and email orders from chefs, and they had about 250 restaurant clients per month. The Ecology Center. So they're a 28-acre certified organic nonprofit educational farm with multiple locations in California that had a farm stand and CSA prior to COVID. They were started in 2008. So like I mentioned, when COVID started, which I think this is a very familiar story for a lot of you, Liberty Ducks lost most of their wholesale outlets and decided to pivot to retail, so going direct to consumer. Their wholesale accounts had dropped from 250 to 125. And when COVID happened and the demand for CSAs rocketed, the Ecology Center grew their CSA and went to direct consumer retail offerings as well. They shifted their payments to pay as you go for customer subscriptions instead of doing the model where you have your customers pay up front for the entire season. That was kind of like a barrier for them. So both places sort of had both farms had their own individual processes of how they ended up choosing Shopify. And I think it's really important to highlight why they didn't choose what platform, just to show what that thought process was like. So Liberty Ducks had been using Square prior to COVID. They had just been using it to process a few credit card payments here and there for some of their customers, but most of their chefs were just like old school mailing in a check. However, they wanted to change platforms. They were having a difficult time figuring out like pickup orders, delivery, and shipping with Square. And so they did look at barn to door. but she kind of quickly looked at it and it was too complicated to set up. The Ecology Center had previously used Farmigo, which is a CSA platform, and they also looked into Barn to Door. So their main thought process was that for both of these CSA platforms, they felt like the backend experience was really great, the like managing the CSA, but the front end experience, so the customer experience, what they're seeing wasn't really what they wanted. They wanted to keep their have creative control over their branding and keep that consistent with the nonprofit. And they couldn't really achieve that using Barn to Door and Farmigo. The Ecology Center also considered WordPress, which is linked with WooCommerce. They said it would probably be a cheaper solution, but the backend experience maybe wasn't as easy. I think one of the speakers today will talk about their experience with WooCommerce, so they might have a different take on it. And then ultimately, they went with Shopify. They were both impressed with the reporting functions on Shopify and how user-friendly and customizable it is to create a great customer experience. The Ecology Center uses WordPress for their main website content, and then Shopify for the retail experience. And then they wanted to make it a seamless experience so that the branding it was consistent throughout those two components of their website. And then Liberty Ducks found Shopify very intuitive and easy to set up. They also liked that Shopify had a good help section. They made Shopify just the main website, the main like system for their website, as opposed to WordPress, which is what the Ecology Center had. And they were also able to update inventory easily to make sure they were not overselling. That was a pro of Shopify. So I encourage you to visit their websites. I think we might link that in the chat, and just kind of check them out. They're, like I said, both of these farms, very different operations. Both of them are using Shopify. So you can kind of see how they vary. I also linked the Liberty Ducks Instagram because they've been doing a lot of great work engaging with customers through that and reposting from restaurants and really driving engagement and making people familiar with ducks and how to prepare them. So that's available if you go to the Liberty Ducks website as well. So yeah, like both farms were able to use the same platform effectively and efficiently to sell the really beautiful and delicious products. The cost and budget it's really interesting. We're so different. So the costs associated with Shopify, the Ecology Center pays about $1,000 a month because of customization and paying for extra features, plugins, the processor that they use that ends up costing like $300 a month for the subscription payments for their CSA. Liberty Ducks, on the other hand, pays about $30 a month plus transaction fees. So $1,000, $30. You'll see if you look at their websites later that they're both really nice websites, in my opinion, and really easy to navigate. The Liberty Ducks, one thing to mention is that they are running a CSA is a little bit more complex, so you might need added components to your website. So that could be another reason why that they have just like less costs. And then the other point is the Ecology Center is a bigger farm, bigger operation, and they're working with a nonprofit budget. So they do have extra funds for that. Personnel and capacities and skill set, really important to consider. So the Ecology Center had marketing professionals working within their nonprofit that had the skill set so they could really manage all of that customization on their website. Whereas Liberty Ducks, she calls herself like a non-expert, and she said like, this is something that like anybody can do. She didn't have like that skill set of building up a website or anything, but she was able to figure it out. But she did say that she had to hire someone to help manage Shopify just because there's so much more time involved in direct consumer as opposed to wholesale. And also the last point, really important to assess the needs and goals. So Ecology Center, obviously they're using it for their CSA program and retail storefront. Liberty Ducks shifted to direct to consumer sales when COVID happened, and utilizing Shopify helped them curate a user-friendly experience for new customers. So my main takeaways before we go to the next section, really important to make a strong game plan before you dive in. You can save a lot of money up front if you have a plan and you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you want to understand your goals, needs, and budget, and also just be realistic. And that might tie back into your budget or what your needs are, but don't overdo it. And yeah, I think like we're here, the Tech Hub is going to be a great resource for you if you want it. I'll be available to do one-on-one sessions and help you move in whatever direction makes most sense for your farm. And we're happy to provide free resources, and I'm glad to be on the webinar with everyone. So we are going to launch a poll, and we appreciate your participation, and we will be following up.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. I think, yeah, so much of this is understanding, you know, where your pain points are and can technology help with that pain point. So whether it's you need to get more customers, fill in gaps, save efficiency or make efficiencies, save time. I know Liberty Ducks was able to integrate a whole bunch of stuff onto one system, which they really liked, when before they were using like 3 or 4 different systems. So their social media is now integrated with it. They have their website, their online sales are all happening in the same place. So they're really happy with that. So there's lots to gain from this, and our 3 presenters who are going to be coming up next here are really going to help bring a lot of their own experiences home and just share how web-based tools and online sales have helped them and what they've learned from that journey. I have a poll that I've launched here at the last minute or so for folks who maybe have come on after the fact. We are providing free direct technical support to farmers based in California on any of your web-based technology needs, whether it's figuring out how to better integrate your social media accounts into your sales, your website, or if it's setting up an e-commerce website for the first time, or if it's even setting up a website for the first time ever. We're here to help. We have myself, 2 other contractors, and Alicia, who are here to support you. So that poll has been launched. You can also add your email into the chat and message us, and we'll follow up with that support in the future. So thanks to those who have participated in that. We're going to move into our panel discussion. If you could go to the next slide. Really excited to hear from all 3 of these folks. Can't thank them enough for taking the time to share their valuable insights with all of you today. And again, we are recording this, so we're going to be sharing this information with other farmers too who can benefit from it. So yeah, so excited for Kelly, Misty, and Chris, who are all have different platforms that they've been using with different tools. There's gonna be a lot of variety here, which we're really excited to highlight. And we're gonna have a Q&A session at the end. So all the presenters are gonna talk for about 10 minutes. Then we're gonna have Q&A. So if there's any questions that come up for you as an attendee, please plop them in the chat box or just save those, write them down so you don't forget, and we'll have time to discuss at the end of all their presentations. So Kelly Smith will be going first, and she is the Executive Director of Agriculture Community Events and Farmers Markets, and they operate 10 farmers markets in Sonoma and Marin County. And Kelly is also a budding backyard farmer with her husband, and she's been a part of the farmers markets for over 24 years. So she has lots of experiences. And Kelly, we're gonna hand it over to you now to share those, and we can go on to the next slide to help launch her.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Alicia. That was really informative about Spotify. So we launched curbside service early in March, right when the lockdown and all the mandates came out on March 17th. And I remember the date because it was my birthday, and we had a big sheet cake brought in and we couldn't share it with anybody. And it was really sad. Everybody looked at the cake and said, you can't share it. So, and my birthday happened to be on our Tuesday market. So, of course, immediately thinking everybody's going to abandon going outdoors and congregating like at a farmer's market, or we might get shut down, all sorts of variables. We decided to launch curbside. I'm the admin along with many other things in our farmer's market. And so I thought, oh, Google Sheets. They're so amazing. People can access them and not edit them, but I can have people edit them. And so I had farmers who were interested in farmers market vendors who were interested to help create a spreadsheet, which I should have included on my slides, but I didn't. It's really messy and not attractive. So everybody knows what a spreadsheet is. So you can just imagine. That was really challenging. And so actually it was CAF, Evan Wigg reached out and said, hey, have you heard of Local Line? So we jumped into Local Line. They had a great 30-day trial without payment. And that was a great website, but it had some challenges. We operate, as Elizabeth said, 10 farmers markets. 3 are year round with multiple days. And the other 7 are seasonal, which most of them start in May. So it became a bit more challenging to use Local Line. I think Local Line's great for an individual farm or individual farmers market. What was challenging for us was having multiple locations. We were going to have multiple subscriptions. So there'd be a lot in and out. And so we jumped into a local food marketplace. And next slide. This is what the user sees when they come to our site. You could offer it in a way where everything's transparent and you can see all the different producers. I like people to dive in, so I created it so that you have to sign up. This is nice because you capture the people who are registering their email address or the email address that they provide you. So you can build in a newsletter or other ways to access them. One of the downfalls that I would like to see them build out is just an internal newsletter, internal prompting system to remind people to order. They need to order by 5 p.m. the day before the farmer's market for their pickup. We do charge a $10 fee for the service, and that pays for our monthly subscription, which to be for our markets, we did it was $1,000 to build it, and I think for an individual it's $500, and they may even work with you if you're on a small scale. And then we pay about $300 a month, which is pretty affordable when you're operating so many markets. Since COVID has started to decrease, where we're seeing less orders. Next slide. So this is what the orders look like when you receive them. You can aggregate them by period. So in this slide, you can see that these are our Tuesday orders. We have a Novato market and Pelham in the morning. And so we're pretty small scale in orders. So it'd be great to see a way that we can offer this service for individuals who really can't make it to the farmer's market, because we all know that farmer's markets are like just a 3 to 4 hour window once a week. So how do you capture those customers? So I was really resistant to having online platforms until COVID. I really wanted that in-person consumer experience, but now I see the light and I see where it could really actually benefit, millennials who don't use cash, or don't think about that shopper experience. So I can see where it may be a real benefit long-term. Next slide. This is also where all the reports land. I have been spending some time here to share with some of my colleagues about how many sales we're making and how many sales we've had this year, over the past year with COVID. We started this platform in late April, so it's been just over a year that we've been utilizing it. I could see as a farmer or a farmer's market vendor where this could be a great tool, because you could really see what people are ordering, what they're interested in. I do have a small bit of our little budding backyard farm listed, so I can see what people are interested in, and just kind of see what we should plant and how we should scale up. Next slide. This is the home screen where you can see, this is just the grid where if you look at the pie chart and you look at the grid next to it, you can see from last year, which is the pink, or no, the blue, to this year in the pink, and you can see the difference. And so it's pretty amazing. You can see your best products. I honestly think that this is really great and best for a group of farmers. We chose this platform also because Feed Sonoma, which is a group of farmers selling, it had been one individual aggregating farm goods going to stores and restaurants, and then they pivoted to doing a CSA model. And now I think it's more of a farmer owned CSA, and they're still sort of feeling out how they're going to pivot again now that things are changing after this past year. But it does work really well for a group. It could work really well for as an individual as well, but it really serves our needs in a way that is very helpful. Next slide. Here's where all the producers lie, and it's in alphabetical order. Each producer, you can see how much they've made in the past year, and then you can go, if you were able to click through, you click into the producer screen. Each producer does have access to their own storefront per se. They, I would say, get about 10% of the vendors that work with us actually owning their online platform. So they're so, not to toot my own horn, but they're very fortunate to have me, that I'm willing to work so hard for them and build out their stores. And we've worked with some interns to help with some of the pictures and such, and get some descriptions in there. And I think it's pretty cool, because I can see something that farmers markets aren't able to tap into very effectively is understanding how much revenue is coming through the markets, through each farm stand or each vendor stand, and understanding really the mechanism and the power that we have in our local economies. So this gives me like a small little snapshot of, you know, what's going on out there, and seasonality with our farmers, and just keeps me in touch with that piece. Next slide. Do I have one more slide? Can't remember. Nope. Goes on to Misty.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Last word.
No, I was just going to say, hopefully that was informative. If I missed something, I'm sure you all will add some questions in the chat or stick around at the end and ask me what I skipped over or have me dive deeper.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I think it's interesting to have the farmers market perspective because there's maybe growers or other growers who registered for this workshop who are aggregating maybe from other producers. So having, these type of platforms that are able to work with multiple vendors and help consolidate and just aggregate stuff, it's super helpful. So thank you.
On that note, just really quickly, I think if that is the case for anyone here, it does have the ability to deal with billing. If your delivery model, it has that built into it. And Amy, who's the CEO, and also her developers have been really helpful, because I am not a techie. I just kind of stumble into things and trying to find my way through. So the experience with local food marketplace was really great for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the ratings in that CSA Innovation e-commerce report that we linked in the chat, is rated by farmers for their customer service availability and capacity and how responsive they were. So it's great to hear that that tech team is there. All right, so Misty, excited to hear from you and your experiences. I know, I'm just really excited. So take it away, please.
Well, hi, thank you for having me. We come from the opposite end. My husband and I have been running Freestone Ranch for 15 years now, and we came from tech. So we thought we could apply what we learned in tech to ag, and that's definitely been true in many ways. And there's also been a massive learning curve, as I'm sure you've heard. So next slide, please. So we came at this with a healthy dose of skepticism and many grains of salt. The essence of the platform landscape, and you'll get into this more with your people individually, but I think it's useful for people to understand that a spreadsheet is basically a list that can perform functions for you. And if you want something more profound than that, you probably want a database. And Shopify and a lot of these other platforms are basically customized and customizable databases. So from our perspective, we wanted things as stripped down and simple and economical as possible, because we had more faith in our ability to do our own customization. And we have found that, sometimes if somebody's trying to do something for you that you know how to do well, it is sometimes more of a challenge. So what we found after lots of experimentation is a pretty simple, elegant approach that might help people who want something really stripped down and straightforward and economical. So, and I can show you backends too. I can do some screen share like we had talked about. So next slide. For our website, I just made one in CSS back in the day, but I wasn't gonna be able to do order processing. And there was a time when people started to expect frequent updates to websites. So we installed WordPress then, and we found that we never really wanted to do frequent updates to our website. We also experimented. There was a moment when it was businesses were expected to maybe not have a website anymore, that you could manage your storefront on Facebook or other social media entirely. And we were always a bit skeptical about that. And it seems like that tide has turned. People are doing their own thing a little bit more and maybe integrating it with these customized databases like Shopify and these other platforms. We didn't want to mess with Shopify. We wanted it simpler and more straightforward than that. And we wanted to do more of it ourselves. WordPress is very user-friendly, very straightforward. It's something that people can do themselves, even if they're not super techy. And Woocommerce is a pretty straightforward. We were impressed. We really like Woocommerce. It's a pretty straightforward integration into WordPress. And what that means is you can, if you have a website hosted with a hosting site, you can add WordPress as a service, which is what we've done. Or you can set up your account through WordPress themselves. And then WooCommerce is called an integration. So it's like an added feature, and it has its own fee, but it's economical and straightforward. So if I can do a screen share, I will go to, oh, you guys have a screen share going. Okay. So I will go to, wow, it has funny names. Let's see if I can pop out of what I'm doing. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Let me
Not
see.
yet. Okay.
Why don't you try again, Misty? You should be able to now.
Okay.
Oh, doesn't look like it.
All right. Well, my screen share is not working. So much for me being your techie. Why is that not working? Oh, it's because I'm on my iPad. Okay, so everybody should know iPads work differently from laptops. I'm on an iPad and it's not performing. So I guess you don't get screen share. So we should go back to the slides. But what I wanted to show you was what WordPress looks like on the back end. In essence, you can link directly to your WooCommerce order database from your website. So you go, really? I can't do it from my iPad? You go into your website's WordPress site, and then there's a menu, and you can drop down and see your orders. And upsides of this are simple, straightforward. Downsides of this is, as other people can attest, it doesn't tie to anything. So I have to enter a customer in several different places. My customer has to have a profile in WooCommerce. My customer has to have a profile in QuickBooks for billing. And my customer has to have a profile in MailChimp for my marketing. So from my perspective, that was import export, not that big a deal, but that might be a really big deal. So that's something to consider too. We use Google Sheets for tracking and grouping. We sell quarters of beef primarily. So I can't just do an inventory. I can't just sell an inventory item like a box of steak, for example. I need to group customers together. These 4 go on this animal. This is the weight. This is the tag number, because we need to track which animal went to which customer. And that's not a problem that inventory understands how to solve. Inventory sends items to customers. It doesn't deal with grouping. So that's a database customization that we could probably do in Shopify or have a consultant do for us. But I just as soon do it in Google Sheets for free. So that's something to consider. For invoicing, we use QuickBooks. QuickBooks is, I think, nobody's favorite, but it's very effective. One thing that was an unexpectedly big hurdle for us culturally was Intuit does address checking against the US Postal Service database. So they, for several years, they would not approve us to process credit cards through our invoicing system. I had to send people to PayPal because we had a PO box address. And I actually raised that as a user interface issue with old friends in the city. Like, hey, this is a rural issue. You guys, tons of rural people have primary PO box addresses. I don't even live that far. You have to fix this. So I had to push on that pretty hard, but it's fixed now. So we can take credit card payments directly from our QuickBooks invoices. But I've kept PayPal as well, because sometimes people have PayPal accounts and it's just easier. But you'd have to keep in mind, then that's a double entry issue. if I take a payment on PayPal, I still have to note it in QuickBooks. So you're noticing that I have a bit of a smorgasbord of different things that I need to integrate. And that's part of the workflow, but it actually works for me. So I think Elizabeth brought up a really good point that thinking of it in terms of pain points and workflow is what you really want to do. People might not be familiar with the idea of a pain point, but what it means from a business consulting standpoint is a problem that you need to solve or some sort of bottleneck in your workflow. And it might be new for people to think of it in terms of workflow, but all that means it might be a useful exercise for people to just take index cards and say, well, what problems do I solve on a given day? And how do I go about this? You know, okay, I need to contact customers. So I use MailChimp for email newsletters. I use Facebook for ads and, you know, notifications. Next slide.
And we have about a minute left for your time, Misty, just FYI. I know you
Okay.
have some good stuff to cover. Yeah.
Okay. So for marketing, we use MailChimp for newsletters, and my husband does an Instagram feed at Freestone Ranch. He has quite a few followers. We joke sometimes that he doesn't really understand how Instagram is supposed to work because his posts are often kind of melancholy. He's very focused on ecological issues of the day. So occasionally he talks about beef there too. But Instagram doesn't necessarily reach local markets, and it's not necessarily oriented around closing sales. So, and word of mouth, as Elizabeth said, is always best. And the last thing I would want to say is it might seem anachronistic in this age of not even using cash, but I tell customers that we prefer checks because the merchant fees on credit card transactions really add up. A quarter of beef costs about $1,000, and the merchant fee on that is still 3% plus. So that's something, you know, that's not nothing. That's something to consider. So for us, or for people who have higher price point sales, you might want to say, we can be dinosaurs and prefer checks. I think that's what I have. I'm curious to take questions later.
I think, yeah, you had one more, I remember, but we can maybe
Oh,
cover that.
you want to skip? What was that? Oh, the last one. Oh, yes. Okay. The last one was finding a balance. Yes. Okay. And we can talk about that in questions, but you've already heard me say not overdoing it, I think, was key to our successful workflow, and not getting caught up in excitement about systems that might feed on themselves rather than feeding what's useful or important for you. And CRM was a good example of that. It's customer resource management. It's basically a customized database that tracks your customer contacts. And it's most useful if people have multiple salespeople and they want to track who closed the sale. If you don't have that, you probably don't need it. So.
Thank you, Misty. I appreciate you breaking down some of those basics for us. And yeah, if any of this is going over your head, or you're like, I don't think this applies to me, we're here to help. CAPS Tech Hub, other nonprofits, we're here to help guide you through these. So yeah, just put your email in the chat box if you'd like any of the Tech Hub staff to follow up with next steps, maybe just guide you through what would be the best fit for your business. So thank you, Misty. That was great to hear what's going on with your business and your guys' experiences. Last but not least, we're going to move on to Chris, a member of your community who's been diving in headfirst into a lot of this technology stuff. So really looking forward to hearing from you, Chris, and your experiences using these different tools.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight via the interwebs to listen to us talk to you about tech. I have primarily made sales through farmers markets in the last, I would say, 6 years. Prior to that, we did word of mouth, direct sales of all of our pigs, whole and half, and used a WordPress website that I built myself. That was It was functional, I would say, but not great. And I was at market a handful of years ago, and an individual inquired about a website, wanted to know more about us, was busy, couldn't buy anything at the time. She went to the website and then contacted me and let me know that she actually builds websites and that mine was pretty clunky, and she would be willing to do a trade to get us a little nicer website. And so that was at the point where we switched over to using Wix. You can switch to the next slide. We ran with a website and then market sales for probably 2 years when we switched to Wix at that point. No online store. That online store, we had kind of a skeleton of it sitting in the background that was not active. About March, I would say probably March 20th of last year, we decided that, that store probably needed to be active and live. So we went ahead and did the work to get it up and running. What you see here is kind of like some of the statistics. Because we had left market last year, we had to make a pretty quick pivot and figure out how to market our Harvest Box program. We had not historically been a CSA or a farm share type of a farm. We were just in our second year of doing vegetable production after 4 or 5 years of solely doing pork and some chicken. So it was pretty rough timing to see that shift. And so we really dove in and started using the email network that we had developed, or the email list that we had developed from Farmers Market. And we saw a pretty quick conversion for people shifting to online sales from us. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This kind of gives a view of what we can see in the back end of our traffic. You can see kind of 2 periods, this year and last year. And this is one of the things that I found really interesting. We weren't tracking this level of detail. We do use Square at market for any non-cash sales. And then we often log cash sales in that as well. So we do have some analytics that have been really nice to be able to track where our sales are at. But like I said, at markets, there are often sales that don't get tracked into that Square, just when things get really busy. In the past, not all sales were being run through that POS system, only primarily the credit card sales. Go ahead to the next slide. So we can manage our inventory really easily. We found that the user interface with Wix is actually pretty simple. Website edits are fairly simple. It's another one of the programs that are out there that are pretty much a drag and drop. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but we've been able to make manipulations to the website. And then the store itself is really simple. You can see in the top right corner, the blue button that says new product. We simply will click that. We upload a photo of whatever we have, be it meat, vegetables, or other, and then we can make a small description about that item, set the price, and then move on. Okay, next slide. This is what customers would see on the front end. Right now, through the website, we have it kind of broken out by categories, and then you can kind of scroll through the all section, and people can just select whatever items they want. They can go in an a la carte kind of a method of ordering, or we offer like a weekly subscription for vegetables, and then we do a weekly subscription of veggies and meat. So those are our primary sellers, and then we also have this, the ability for people to pick and choose what they'd like, almost like being at market. We've now been back at market, and so that's another way we're moving excess product that's not going into the weekly subscriptions. We don't have any slides right now, but we are shifting away from Wix. One of the downfalls we found with their online store is it's really geared towards a fixed priced item. doesn't have variable rates. So things like, a bunch of radishes is easy because it's the price it is. But when you get into trying to price out a roast or a package of pork chops, and it can range from 14.25 up to 22.50. And so we'd have to create all these binning systems to try and keep the prices relative to what the actual product was. And that became really challenging. So we've made the shift just in the last month to working with Barn to Door, because they offer a variable pricing, and they also offer a like a pick pack list that is itemized and laid out for each of the products and each of the customers. Because they're geared towards farming and ranching, there's some other kind of farm related optimizations that we found to be worth the shift. Next slide. So this is just another like drill down into the actual item. You can go to the next slide. So jumping from what we use for sales and marketing and some of our marketing, I didn't mention we do use the Wix email marketing campaigns. They're really powerful. We're also making a shift to use MailChimp. So we'll see how that transition goes. But it's integrated with the Barn to Door store that we're using. So that seems to be a functional tool that we're going to. This is looking at our crop planning software that we've used for the last 2 years from a company called Tind. We started out with it kind of, I would say in February or early March last year. So a little bit late for really getting into the planning as I would like to. And we threw a lot of things at it, and we kind of just played with it as we went through the season, adding crops as we would plant them. And I'd say last year was pretty much a no plan year. It was like, just do it as we go and plug things in. Being that it was only our second year in vegetable production, it was a learning curve on a lot of fronts, but we thought, well, we'll try this. I had been working with a handful of other software management and project management programs, as well as all manner of insane Excel and Google Sheets that I had built myself, that were a series of Gantt charts and schedules and planning for all of our crop rotation, but also we do the same for our grazing management. And so I wanted when I found Tind at EcoFarm last January or 2 Januaries ago, I found that it was geared towards farms, and they had taken the time to really build it out so that it was functional. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So you can see in this slide, you can kind of see the succession plantings. This is one of the crops that we grow, and we found we plant it every 2 weeks, and we have a whole manner of different things in here. This is looking at just the crop itself and the time frame, the days to maturity. Go to the next slide. This looks at all the different crops in the different field blocks and greenhouses. And so you can start to get an idea of, are we going to have space to plant the things that we thought we've got, in seed flats or direct sowing? We're still kind of working through the process. I don't have all of our expenses plugged into Tind at this point. What I've seen is some of the price per units are off, and price per bed feet that we can refine, and we're keeping track of that stuff this year a lot better than we did last year, so that we can really start to refine down into that and have a good idea of what the estimated yield and estimated earnings will be. Another feature that Tind has that we haven't really dabbled into is they do have a online sales platform that is just for vegetables, and so that's something that they offer through their package that they developed. I guess it would be March of last year. So for folks that are just doing vegetables and fruits, but don't have meat involved, it could be a really easy option and combine, your planning and your harvest pick pack list with your sales outlets. Next slide.
And that was all. Did you have anything else, Chris, to add to that?
I would say one of the things that has helped us kind of shift from Wix to the barn to door site is there is no percentage that they're charging per sale at this point. They're more expensive per month for their fees than what we were paying with Wix. But some of the options that they have with the pick pack list, the customer label, and the variable pricing, what really just kind of it drove home for us that we had been making Wix work, and we've really been, I like trying out different software and apps, but when I come across something that's been designed and developed for farms, I tend to see the benefit of making that jump, even if the price point's a little higher, because the folks that are building those out are working with more farms, and they're hearing the same thing from all the farms or similar issues, and making the changes to make the software and the functionality of those programs better for us as farmers. So that's one of the things I've come to realize over the years of working with all the different platforms that we've tried. Everybody's going to find a different functionality for them, but that's been kind of my experiences. If it's geared towards farming, it has more functionality and it's going to meet my needs better, and I'm willing to pay for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That time, the money spent is saving you maybe some of the labor hours or just the brain power that's going into your other planning. So that's an important thing to measure, as well as the bottom line. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Chris. And yeah, again, this is recorded, so we're hoping to share these, what your lessons learned with other farmers in California as well. And I know we're running up to the hour, and if anyone has any questions, we'll be taking that next. But Ivy has a quick update for everyone regarding the workshops survey. Ivy.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to take a quick moment to let you know that we do have a evaluation available to you all for this workshop that we would love for you to fill out. It really helps us improve what we're doing here. So I'll put it in the chat once again, and I put it in the chat earlier in the meeting as well, but I didn't get a chance to voice that to you as well. So I know that we all want to get into the Q&A, so I'll hand it back over to that, but please check that out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ivy. All right, so yeah, I know we have more of an intimate crowd here, but if anyone wants to come off mute or add any questions in the chat for any of the speakers, whether it's a general tech question or a really specific question to one of the panelists, please jump in. Or any of the panelists too, if you want to ask your fellow panelists a question.
Were we really?
Can I ask generally if the attendees currently have websites, or if they are thinking about making them, or like maybe a little bit from them about what's going on for them, what their setup is?
Yeah, would be nice to hear. I'm not, no one's on video, so it's hard to tell if they're multitasking. Oh, I see Jessica coming on. You want to share, Jessica?
Yeah, I am working for Crazy River Ranch, and we've had a website, or we built a website last March, and we're using Harvey and then switched to Barn and Door. So we're currently with Barn and Door, and they kind of revamped our website for us, which was really great, just kind of cleaned it up. And yeah, it's been good. There's been some, we're not doing CSAs and only doing really small farmers market shares. So it has been a challenge for us to basically get email lists and to connect to customers online. So I kind of took that on for my friends who own the ranch. And I think that's been the biggest challenge, is just getting connected to people on the internet, and figuring out how to write a newsletter. So yeah.
I hear you, Jessica. We really like MailChimp. I would say thumbs up for MailChimp. I don't know if you've looked at that or considered it, but
Yeah, actually with Barn to Door, they were really awesome in that they like created a template for me. So that's been great. But you know, what is the content and getting emails to send to people, and figuring out how to get people to open them more. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I remember joking about that actually back with people getting so caught up in tech things years ago. And I was like, well, you know, the main thing is, what are you actually going to say? Be like, what? Oh, what am I going to say? Yeah, you really just need a pencil for that. Like, think about what you need to say before you even consider which platform to use or what tech you want, or, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see that Alan came off mute. So I don't know if there's a question from Alan.
Not right at the moment.
Awesome.
I would say to the, like, what do you say in the newsletter? I have a few folks that I've followed over the years that are friends that also do like a CSA system, and they're very, they get into the details of the farm, and we've kind of shied away from some of that at the beginning and tried to keep it really, you know, succinct and pretty short. But what I'm hearing from folks, you know, when I run into them out in the community, even folks that are on our newsletter that haven't been buying for the last few months will say, oh, we're so glad to like learn about what's going on, you know, to hear about, you know, what, you know, new sheep are on the farm or what crops are being planted. And it seems kind of like silly in a lot of ways. You know, it's like the mundane weekly details of, even it's like, oh, this week this sheep got out 7 times. They're bastards. We really hate them and they're being evil. But you know, it's like people find they connect with that, and I think that's one of those ideas, is like through the marketing piece is we're connecting folks to the farm without them being on the farm. And so it's just like, it can seem like daily mundane details that, you know, good,
Yeah, they're
bad, or
happy that
ugly.
they're not dealing with the sheep.
Yeah.
So
You know,
and they're grateful to you for dealing with the sheep. So they're
Yeah.
connected into the farm that way. Yeah, I agree. I think photos are a huge thing. We do an email newsletter for our biggest farmers market and lots of social media, and we pull from all our farmers and vendors, and those photos tell so many stories that you don't really need as many words. So taking photos around the farm and kind of sharing that is an easy way out if you're not a writer.
Jessica, are you guys doing like subscriptions through Barn to Door with meat orders? Or are you guys just doing a la carte?
Yeah, we are. Those have dwindled for us significantly. I think in some ways we had higher rates of subscriptions through Harvey, because I think because the customizable option there, but that was a really difficult I think for the user and for me, it was a really difficult interface to work with, and that's kind of why we left that. But we're reassessing what we're doing, and that's, I guess, kind of a question is like figuring out what specifically to have be the subscription, because we don't process a lot of animals at once. So figuring out what the content is that people want has been something that I've been struggling with too.
Yeah.
That's
Same.
something that I think we got wrong, because we're kind of private and we didn't want to share like these weird daily details, like kind of like you're saying, like, well, why would anybody want to know that? But they do, and it's sweet, and it can be as personal or as just kind of anecdotal as you want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we have two sides of that in our household. My wife is more like that. People don't need to know. They don't care. And I'm like, they might want to know. They probably will care. And now we're like both kind of like, oh, well, people are giving us feedback that they want to know this stuff. So it makes a difference from a marketing standpoint. And setting out a sign up sheet at market is what we did early on. And just collected as many emails as we could. And so we leveraged that. We went back and pulled an old Gmail set of emails, email list out of our Gmail account and put it into the Ascend program that Wix uses. And we just updated that to MailChimp today, actually. So.
It's really different now. It used to be sort of expected that you would not opt people into a mailing list without their express consent. And now it's sort of expected that anybody who emails you ever would be added to the list. Anybody who inquires about anything, anybody who buys. I used to be really maybe a little too careful about whether it was okay to add someone to our mailing list, but that has changed over time. And now we have a little form on our website, join our mailing list, and people totally use that.
Yeah, I'd second that. I had someone that signed up for the mailing list get super bent out of shape about 5 years ago that I sent him emails, and it was that same sort of thing. I was like, well, you signed up. Like, he was so angry. It's like, well, just email me instead of stop. I was like, I send like one every 2 months. So like, geez.
Yeah, that's another nice thing with MailChimp is they handle the one-click unsubscribes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna add, there are still laws, but what's nice about these third parties like MailChimp is they have all the things in place to make sure those are being followed and all of that. So you have to worry about it as much. I know we're a bit over time. This has been helpful just to go over that marketing piece. So I'm glad we got to add that in. Any other, before we wrap up for the evening, just want to be respectful to everyone's time commitment. Any other last minute thoughts or questions anyone would like to throw in there? Fred, I hope we didn't mute you accidentally.
Not, for the record.
No? Okay. It's hard to hear. All right. Well, we'll go to the last slide just so people have some links if they want to look those up before we close out here. We do have a general email that I put in the chat box, techhub@caf.org. If anyone wants to follow up with additional questions, a reminder that we are providing free support to farmers based in California on your web-based technology needs, whether that's just walking through your marketing plan more, maybe getting some additional resources to think through that strategy and how it can integrate with your business goals, to setting up an e-commerce website. We are happy to dig in deeper with you. So please give us an email if you weren't able to participate in that poll. And if you did, we'll be following up with all of those folks shortly. And thank you again to all our panelists. Thank you for taking the time to share your experiences with everyone, talk about what's working for you and why. Just so appreciate your time. And also for everyone else on the workshop who attended, and also of course to Ivy and the North Coast Growers Association, their small business administration for helping to make this workshop possible. So just thank you to everyone. And Ivy, do you want to have the last words before we close out?
I don't need to do that. No, I'm really happy to have been here, and thank you so much to CAF, Tech Hub, Elizabeth and Alicia for putting this on for us. I really look forward to sharing this recording and getting the word out about all this great information.
And Alicia, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I hear that train in the background. Right on time.
I live by the tracks, yes. Awesome. All right, thank you everyone for the chat. Thank yous. And yeah, have a great evening and we'll be in touch.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Okay. And I'll stay on just in case there's any last things, but folks can feel free to jump.